Hello. Today we're going to talk about my new camera. So this is the Fujifilm X100F in black. Look at how beautiful that camera is. I have made the jump from big DSLR Pro equipment to something very simple, very neat and compact, and very capable. And I just wanted to talk about my reasons of buying it, because when I was doing my research, I came across a lot of videos of people reviewing it, talking about it, comparing it to other cameras, and working it into their daily flow of photography. And so I wanted to make a version of my own and explain where I'm coming from and just my usability with this camera. First thing I want to say is looks. This is arguably one of the nicest cameras I think that you could just throw around your neck. That is all obviously subjective and opinion based, but this camera to me is so beautiful and so simple, very clean. I went with the black version, obviously. It's just striking to me. That was a big selling feature for me, is just how nice it is. Next major point is the size and the portability of it. So hauling around a big DSLR is really daunting, especially if it's not meant for professional use. I had a 5D, mainly with a 24-70 on it, with the lens hood on it and stuff like that. That's a really big rig to just be like, oh, let's go for a walk and I'll bring the camera. That was a big step for me to say, not only do I want this camera, and I could have just added it to my arsenal for travel, for, daily shooting, and leave the professional side separate, but it was a big jump for me to replace equipment with this. I just saw it sitting there longer and longer every time I used it, so I was like, I think I'm ready to get to something that I'm going to enjoy. It's a 23mm lens, but it's an equivalent to 35 because it is a crop sensor. I never ever have found limitations with 35mm because I don't shoot wildlife, I don't shoot sports, I don't shoot that kind of stuff. I don't need a long lens. I understand for portrait work and stuff, you'd probably want to be 50 and upwards from there, and I totally get that. But again, I don't really do enough of it to really see any limitations, because I'm just fine shooting at 35, and if I want to decide to get that TCL adapter down the road, then I can shoot 50mm equivalent on this. I've shot a 35mm for almost a year straight on a Pro DSLR without taking it off, and I had all these lenses sitting aside. So personally, I like that focal length. I come from shooting film. The other major thing about this is when you carry a big DSLR around your neck, it's very threatening and very intimidating to people passing by, especially if you're trying to shoot just random stuff. When I say it's intimidating, I mean it as they see you as a professional and they're wondering what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and if their face is in it, what they may be representing, which is totally fair. I've been walking through areas personally, and when I see a guy lift up a big camera, I'm like, no, don't get me in that shot. Because again, you don't know what it's getting used for. You don't know how it's going to portray you. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable with photography on the street or, anywhere. So this thing is so little. It doesn't bother anybody. It looks like an old film camera. It's way less intimidating. Nobody's going to be thrown off by what you're doing with it. It's very friendly. It's just more of like a very hobbyist, like, oh, I'm just out here shooting, don't worry. So that's another huge thing for me, is it's very good like that, which kind of segues into my next point. This camera is very inspiring to me because of how easy it is to have on you. I want to bring this everywhere. It's been tough. Calgary is in the -40s right now with the wind. We're stuck in a polar vortex and it's been horrible outside. So I have not been able to even leave the house for longer than 2 minutes at a time because our skin will just freeze. So it's tough to go out and test this. I just bought it. And yeah, it's been a pain in the butt because I can't just go out and shoot. I've had an X100 before. I've also had an X100S. And they were both incredible cameras. I loved both of them. And this is even a major step up from those ones. So just playing around with it, I fell in love with it. I'd like to give a huge thank you and a big shout out to the camera store in Calgary, Alberta. They knew that I was interested and they gave me one of theirs to shoot for a week just to play around with. They were like, you know what? See if it fits into your workflow. Don't take any commitment yet. Just take ours, and when you bring it back, we'll have one set aside for you just in case. So they gave me a silver one and it took me all of 3 days to really understand if it was going to work into my style. So I went back and I picked up the all black one. If you're ever at the camera store in Calgary, ask for Ron and tell him I sent you. So anyway, thank you to them. My other thing is, like I said, I focus more on video. That's where I get the fancy stuff. This is very simple. It's still, you know, it's still $1,600+. So it's not a cheap camera, but it's just so simple. All the dials are right there. Everything's there. Everything you need to learn about this camera. You got your exposure compensation, you got your shutter here, you got your shutter speed and your ISO. So you lift this dial and spin it, and the window underneath here will change your ISO. So the other thing about the aperture is it's right on the lens here. So you'll see across here, you can actually change your aperture just like that, or you can put that on auto as well. And that's pretty incredible to me, how simple that is. You just, you know, you could go auto shutter speed, auto ISO, and then let's just say you put it on like F4, you're pretty much good to go. Another major selling point for this was the built-in ND filter. If I'm shooting in California, I love a high aperture in bright scenery. I think that's such a good look. I love that focus being really tight and then super washed out and blown out. I love that 70s vintage California vibe. So I can shoot this at f2 with an ND filter on in bright sunshine, which is also incredible because then I don't have to like do anything. I just literally, I made a button, a shortcut to the ND filter, it just turns it on. So that is another huge feature for me. And then lastly, it is capable. I think that the specs of this camera speak for itself. I think the imagery from this camera speaks for itself. I never plan on using the video on this, so I'm not talking about this as a video camera whatsoever. But as a stills camera, you have your megapixel count, you have your shutter speed, you have your ND filter. What else do you need, really? It's just so capable and so fast. And then the biggest thing that I will say just specifically about the Fuji is this little joystick right there. That moves in 8 directions. While you're looking through the viewfinder or in the screen, you can actually move the focus point around, hold the shutter halfway, and it'll focus on the square that you just did. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you actually think about the work it would take to do that on any other camera, it's usually a few clicks. This is while you're shooting. Let's say your subject is a model, so you shoot like this, and then you go into portrait. I can bump up to their head and shoot in focus on their face, no problem. Even though this has face tracking, I'm just saying that's an example of it. If you want to shoot on a third, you can pull the focus over to a third, and there you go. Like, it's so nice to have, and I know it sounds so simple, but nobody's really done it that quickly and that easily. That little joystick right there is game-changing, and it just makes the whole workflow so much easier and so much nicer. Wireless connectivity, you know, most cameras have that now, but this is it's pretty good. So if you're thinking of doing that, then you have to have a JPEG version. If you shoot RAW, you have to have normal or fine, or you just shoot JPEG for them to transfer to your phone. But it has, you know, all these cool little shortcuts. It has a dial here that is a button and a scroll wheel. The same on the back here that also pushes in and scrolls. It has a function button here, and all of them are customizable. So whatever you are used to, if you want to press, you know, right on your directional pad for your ISO settings, then you can set this up to do that. So I've gone through that all, and this is completely customized and very easy to use to me. The menu system is very easy to understand, and I've just always really liked Fuji, and I think they've hit it out of the park with this one because I was such a fan of the X100s anyway, that the F is kind of the way to go for me. I'm just going to take a second to talk about the accessories that I find that I love and that I think were very necessary off the bat for me. So I went with the lens hood. So funny thing about this is the Fuji branded lens hood is $100 Canadian. I got this on Amazon in one day for under $20. I didn't pay shipping because I have a Prime, so don't quote me if the shipping goes above that, but the lens itself, the lens hood itself, is under 20 bucks. And it is the JJC LH X100. I will link all the accessories I'm about to talk about in the description below. I got them all in a day. So that was the lens hood that I got. I got a soft shutter button at the camera store when I bought it. I like them on Fuji cameras specifically because the shutter's a little low. It's very close to like the power toggles, so I like to have something a little bit raised, a little bit more tactile, so I just grabbed that. So you can get those at any camera store, but then I also got some brass and gold ones, and they are, I just ordered them off Amazon, so I'll link those below. Hop on Amazon and type in soft shutter, you'll find whatever you want. And then I also got this little thumbs up grip. You can see it, it's kind of plugged into the hot shoe. This one is by a brand, Heore. This one is specifically made for the X100F. The reason that it's specific is because the older versions, this button layout was slightly different, so this one doesn't cover them. Also on Amazon, nice and cheap, and it just gives you that grip so that when you're out shooting it, you feel like just a little bit more connected to the camera, and it also covers your hot shoe mount, which you should be doing, in my opinion, anyway. So either you get a little plug or you get one with a thumb grip attached to it. So those are the things that I bought right away for it. Other than that, I'm just gonna kind of ride it out. I'm just gonna shoot it a lot, and I'm just gonna play with it. I will make more videos, like I said, about actual photos and settings that I use and colors that I use. They have the film simulation in this, just like any other Fuji. If you guys are interested in this camera, let me know what questions you may have about it. Talk to your local camera store. Maybe they do a try before you buy. Maybe you have a good rapport with somebody there and they can lend you one. It's a very, very impressive camera, and I've had only pro level cameras for the last decade. So I have nothing except this now for cameras and my phone. So that should say a lot. I think it's very capable, and I think I can manage just fine with it. I'm considering the TCL attachment for it, but again, I don't think I need it. I really don't. I think that 35mm is perfect. This is the perfect street photography camera. This is the perfect hobbyist camera. This is the perfect blogger camera. I'm back to being inspired by photography, and I'm back to being happy with the equipment that I have, that I know that this is going to see a lot of wear and tear, and I'm very excited to share that with you guys. So if you have any questions, leave them below. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Like the video if you want. It helps the channel grow. And other than that, I will see you in the next one.